Hey everyone, welcome to another sit down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. And today I got a really special guest that I have a sit down with, somebody that I've known for a long time, that I admire very, very much. And I want to ask you all this. How many people out there have had a tragedy or a struggle or an ordeal in their life that they're really having a problem getting over? You're going to hear a story now from a dear friend of mine, Ray Boom Boom Mancini. Lightweight champion of the world, great fighter, always came forward, never backed up. But what really defined Ray, how he came back from a real tragedy, a real ordeal in his life that I think is going to be inspiring to all of you out there. Hey, there you are. You're looking good, buddy.
I feel good. How you doing?
I'm doing okay, man. It's been a while. So it's too bad we got put off last year, huh?
Honest to God, how many people have told me, but we're going to do it. I told them we're going to do it. That's all I can tell you. We're going to do it. It's going to be done right. Yeah, it was heartbreaking. Because how many people, I had people come driving in from Toledo, from the area. It was the craziest. I never saw anything like it, man.
I know,
my
man.
lifetime, certainly not yours either, right?
No, I never seen it. Who knows? You never know in life, but I never seen anything like this. Never.
It shut down the world, man. It shut down the world.
I know, and they want to. Some people want to continue seeing it shut down. How is it by you? Because out here, forget it, man.
My son's still back in LA. Still, my other son's in New York. They're opening up. My daughter's in Miami. They're opening up. Here we're open up.
You're opened up?
We're open up. Yeah, we've been open up. You still got to go to wear the mask, and that's fine. And the capacity was up, but now it's, places are starting to move. But it's funny, better than that, a lot of the restaurants now, they actually did better just doing takeouts.
I know.
So none of them are saying, like, we don't even want indoor dining anymore.
I know. It's crazy, The pizza places out here, all the takeout places went crazy. Really.
Exactly.
Orange County, we've been opened up because a lot of the restaurants out here, they defied the order. They said, we're opening up. The fine was like $300 a day. They said, we'd rather take the fine.
That's it. How can you survive? Michael, you know better than me. Look, the mom and pop places, they ain't coming back. And places that you go, the higher end places that I frequent out here, or young stuff. Friends of mine, we have a friend, Mike Alberini. Mikey said to me, Randy, he said, they got PPP money, help.
Right.
He said, but we took this. I lost over $2 million. And for Youngstown, over $2 million.
That's a lot of money.
He says, but Michael, I always thought you hope that you do well enough to take some money, put in the old Coofer.
Right.
Or something like that. To go into the Coofer, take it out, and so you can survive on it.
Exactly.
But a lot of these people understand. People always think, look at, so-and-so's doing good. I go, he's just breaking even again. He's getting back to where he was. He ain't making money. He's got to get back to where he was.
Right. Just to get back to square one and start all over again. But they put so many people out of business. It's horrible. The same in New York. They got the same situation.
Texas defied it. Texas opened up, right?
And they did okay. Texas is okay. Florida's okay. All the states that opened up did okay. The ones that closed down are struggling.
I don't understand. This is what I just don't get it. I don't understand. China had it for what, 4 weeks, 6 weeks? 6 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, it was over. Italy had it for 6 weeks.
Exactly.
Here we are, a year and a half later, and we're still talking about it, going through it. It's unbelievable. And
some of these crazy people are saying, not until next year. We got to keep wearing masks, everything until next year. It's ridiculous, really.
In 2019, I traveled over 100,000 miles. Fox 15. Last year, I traveled twice.
I know, me too.
It wasn't that far.
Me too, I know.
My Fox deal's off. They said, look, we're not flying anybody out. We're not putting anybody out no more. We're using our local hire.
Of course.
So my Fox deal, I had a 4-year deal with them. That's over.
Right? Amazing.
It killed me. I moved into a brand new house. Me and my bride bought a brand new house, this house, January, based on my contract with Fox.
Wow.
January 28th, I come in.
Done.
And what do? I said, you know what you do? And this guy, I'm not trying. I said, I get on my knees every night. Good Lord.
That's all you can do, brother.
That's all I do. I said, Lord, you got plans for me, whatever it is, please.
Exactly.
But please don't take me out of my house, please. You didn't bring me here to take me out, please. Because my wife's like, oh, okay, how embarrassing that would be. I said, you think I could give a crap? That's the least of my worries.
Right.
Embarrassing. I'm not worried about that.
Right.
I'm just trying to take care of my family.
I know what you
Jesus, man.
I know, brother. Let me ask you this. Is there anything you don't want to talk about? We're good?
Whatever you want.
Okay.
Open book. I'll even tell you stories. I'll be talking. You go, oh, wait, we don't need to know that shit. The other thing, I feel bad. I want ahead of time. My language gets a little blue sometimes when you tell the story. So that's okay on this thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to be I'm not dropping it just for effect. But if you're telling a story or something, you know what I'm talking about.
You say anything you want to say, Ray. You got it. No problem.
Yeah.
All right. Are we ready?
Good to go.
All right. We're good to go. I already made a little announcement, that you're on and all that. So we can get right into it. All right. So listen, before we get going, Ray, let me tell you this. We haven't seen each other in how long?
Quite a while.
Couple of years.
California, 2014. So I don't know.
2014. Yeah, but I still remember me and my wife came out one time. We seen you in Youngstown. I had an event over there.
Yes.
We
That's
had
right. Great. Okay, that's the last time.
We had a great dinner and everything else. And it was terrific. But now it's been a couple of years. We had a date last year that was canceled, but that's going to be made up. And but we go back to Santa Monica. The last time we were in Santa Monica together, I don't know if you remember, we were at the Il Fornaio restaurant.
Il Fornaio Trattoria.
And you introduced me to Ed O'Neill, your good friend. Who, by the way, I got to tell you, I did a Zoom with Joe Pistone, Donnie Brasco, who's now doing something with Ed O'Neill, who just loves the guy. He said he's one of the best guys he ever met.
Mike, I told you before, Michael, Eddie, people don't understand. They think, people always say to me, who's the toughest guy in Hollywood? I said, Ed O'Neill. Al Bundy? I said, whoa, let me straighten you out on this. Eddie's like 74 years old. But I said, let me tell you something. Eddie was a street guy.
Mm-hmm.
He lives from the north side, I'm from the south side. And Eddie used to run with the crew, major guys. Some of them became major guys.
Right.
Became major guys. And then it became like a lot of these guys became they had like big jewelry theft ring. Like they created. Now, when I say run with them, we went to school with them, hung out with them. But some of these guys Eddie was leery of a lot of these guys, obviously. But they were leery of Eddie too. Because everyone knew he could go on the street.
He's a tough guy.
Throw. And, a big guy. He's going to play football, of course. But Eddie, with the Steelers in 1970, he made the last cut, with the one that Terry Bradshaw, Joe Green, all the great teams. Eddie was part of that to the last cut,
Right.
He's a street guy. Let nobody kid you. And so, but I tell people, Eddie, people don't understand. Eddie's a street guy. Eddie, if can use his hands. He's known for in the streets. Now he's a black belt, 4th degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I said, are you kidding me? Eddie will choke. He will kick your ass. And I always tell people the story, true story. I love talking this story. Eddie got into acting late, 31, 32 years old. Went to New York. He was there for a couple years studying. The first gig he ever gets, this is all you need to know. First gig he ever gets, Miami Vice. One of the big shows at that time, right?
Big show, yeah.
And the scene calls for Eddie's running like I said, Eddie was the head of a jewelry theft ring, something like that, right? In the show. But in the show, there's a scene where Philip Michael Thomas, Don Johnson's partner,
right.
Come and grabs Eddie, bangs him around, knocks him around, blah, blah. And this is Eddie's first job. And he goes, told the director, he said, hey, I have a problem. So he said, the scene, he takes me, bangs me around. He said, that ain't going to happen. I said, what? He said, that ain't going to happen. He said, what do you mean? He said, that would never happen. He said, he ain't banging me around. That ain't going to happen. The guy said, well, Ed, it's in the script. He said, I don't care. Change the script. They go, Ed, we can't. And he goes, look, first thing they teach you about acting is you don't want to have to convince the audience. Right. And you watch wise guy stuff. You go, that's bullshit. You don't have to convince the audience. And he goes, nobody's going to believe this guy banging me around. Nobody's going to believe that. So why would you have that in there? So to make a long story short, Phil Time comes over, what's going on? They go, Ed don't want to do the scene. What's the problem? Ed says that wouldn't happen. He goes, Ed, we're acting. I don't care. He said, nobody's going to buy you. He said, you ain't doing nothing to me. He said, matter of fact, I'd beat your ass and you'd like it. So, Don Johnson comes over, hey, what's the problem? And they say that, here's the problem. They go, yeah, it's acting. He goes, hey, get a new actor or change the scene. Well, we can't get a new actor. We got, and we figure it out.
He stood up for himself right away.
Exactly.
The funny thing, I was filming a movie down there, the movie I met my wife on when Miami Vice was filming down there. And I saw a couple of times I went over to the set. Now that I'm thinking, I think I seen Eddie, maybe not in this scene, but I think I seen him. But my connection with him, when I was in the hole, when they locked me up in LA County Jail, I was in the hole. And the show Married with Children, I said, I never even looked at that. But when I got in a hole, I had a television right in front of my cell, right? And every night I used to look forward to watching Al Bundy on Married with Children. That was my enjoyment for the day. So when I got to meet him with you, it was nice. I said, hey, Ed, he lifted my spirits.
Eddie will remember that story too, because I'll tell you, Eddie's got like a photographic memory.
Really, huh? All right, well, that's good. That's something we share. I'm sure everybody knows who you are, Ray. Boom, boom, lightweight champion, and all the accolades that you got. You were 29-5, I believe, right? You had 23 KOs. You were the lightweight champ for a couple of years. You had some great fights. And something that I learned about you, we never really spoke about, but your motivation to become a fighter was really based upon you wanting to please your dad and kind of continue his legacy. Tell us about that.
People always say to me, you were a fighter because of your father. I say yes and no. Yes, I became a fighter because I wanted to be my father. Mm-hmm. I wanted to win that title for him because, Michael, when I was growing up, everyone used to talk about how could have been, should have been, would have been world champion if it wasn't for World War II. He was number one contender in the world for over a year. Couldn't get nobody, they were ducking him as much as you could. He already fought the champion in a non-title fight, beat him, got in a rematch, and he said, look, it was supposed to set for February of 42. He got drafted in January. He said, look, I want to defend my country. I just want an opportunity to fight for the title. He said, I'll give all my money to the Army Relief Fund, which at that time was crying for money. And they said, we don't want your money. We want you. So went in the war, got shot up in the Battle of Metz. Other than the Battle of the Bulge, Battle of Metz was the most destructive war in the European theater of operation. Shrapnel throughout his body. They said he'd never live. Got through that. They said he'll never walk. Got through that. They said certainly he'll never fight. Eventually he came back and talk about that. He came back from the war in 1944. At the end of 44, he come back. And so a lot of local guys, boom, boom, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it. And they were running the Barboot games, right? And my father was just the host. He's just the host walking around, My father said, Raymond, he said, Raymond, that's no life for me. That was no life. He said, you're up late, you date. He said, and after, a couple months of that or whatever, he said, I'm going back to New York and I'm fighting. And they said, and the one guy here said, boom, don't go back. We'll build you a gym here. We'll build you. Nah, I got to go. And he went back. But Mike, he came in, he went in, drafted when he was the number one contender in the world. And he came out of middleweight because of all the shrapnel in his body blew up. But my father was 5'2". My father was 5'2", but he had a chest this wide.
Yeah.
The one thing I'm most proud of, I tell people, as a lightweight, welterweight, and later on as a middleweight, but he fought light heavyweights. My father was over 100 fights, was never knocked out or stopped in any fight.
Not once.
Never. Even as it went up. And
so your dad was the toughest guy you knew.
And he was legendary in the streets of Youngstown. Legendary. Another connection we got, when I got to meet your father, Sonny, I met him in 1980. It was in New York. It was an event for the Ring 8 boxing. They had a thing in Brooklyn. I meet your father. Your father and me were in the service together. Mm-hmm. My father told me that. My father and your father met during combat.
Really?
On the field or something. They were passing. One was coming, one was going. It's just crazy. And my father always told me that. Yeah.
My father and I spoke about you, and he said what I loved about Ray, he had a huge heart. He said he just had a huge heart. And, I remember we have a lot in common because, my life, took a turn because I went into that life to help my dad. It was all about helping my dad get out of prison. And then I think what happened is similar with us. You got into fighting because of your dad, but then you wanted to be the best fighter in the world. Then it was all about you being the best fighter in the world.
Absolutely.
And me, the same thing. I got into the life because of my dad, but then I wanted to be the best mob guy in the world. So I worked hard to do, it's amazing how our fathers had that influence on us.
The fun thing is, but my father, but when I say no, I wasn't, my father's the one who tried to talk me out of it the worst way. He said, Raymond, this is no life. I had a fight. It was depression. I had to eat. You have so many opportunities because I had an academic as well as athletic scholarship to go to college, Xavier University down in Cincinnati. Had a professional baseball offer by Toronto Blue Jays, which I don't think that was such a big thing because in 1979, it was their second year in the league. I think they were offering anybody a contract. But I just said, no, I want to do it for you. What's he going to say? And I'm sure like yourself, you were a very smart guy. You had education. You could have gone and done it. You could have went into any life and been successful. I'm sure like you've heard this. After I won the title, reporters used to say to me, well, okay, now that you won the title. For one guy said to me once, he said, yeah, we all know the story, but you want to win the title for your father. Is that, but did you ever really think that you'd be a champion? Mm-hmm. I said, yeah, man, yeah. Because I used to dream about it. I used to have these dreams when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, visions carrying the belt over my head. I go to bed every night thinking that way. Michael, now they have a sports psychologist or psychologists in general have a fancy name. It's called positive mental visualization, right?
Yeah.
If you can see it, if you can believe it, you can be it. I said, hell, man, I always thought it was called dreaming.
You know what defined you, Ray? When I read about you, when I first met you back then, and I was reading a little bit about you, what really defined you to me was you were willing to take 2 punches to deliver one good one. And you always came forward, always went forward, never backed up.
My father used to say to me, Raymond, my father used to say, I used to love him. He said, Raymond, I never took a step backwards. Never, not one. Then he stopped and go, but sometimes I wish I did. But that's the way, look, Michael, I learned early on, I wanted to be my father thing. After my first professional loss, I was so heartbroken, but I realized, I'm sure like yourself, I said, I'm not him. He's too much of a man for me.
Right.
I just got to be me. My father never said, my father was this guy. My father, people said, I used to shake people's hand, shake my father's hand, kiss my mother. They made such a big deal about it. My first television fight, I kissed my father in the mouth, we hugged him, kissed in the mouth. I said, I've done that since day one. My father, when I was a little boy, and I remember I was a teenager, and he would kiss me on the mouth. He said, Raymond, you can never be a real man if you can't kiss your father on the mouth.
That's right.
And I told it to my kids. And because my kids did the same thing when they were going to school. People watching. And to this day, they kiss me on the mouth. My father, he was that guy. And so I was like, my father was so affectionate because he was an old timer. My father loved me. I became the man I was because of my mother and father. Now, first of all, my father was my inspiration. Mm-hmm. He's everybody I want to be as a man, as a father, as a fighter. But my mother was my motivation. My mother made me believe I was 10 foot tall. My mother made me believe I could be whatever I want in this world. She said to me, Raymond, the only limitations you have are those you put on yourself. It could be anything you want. Now, my father was the guy who said, Raymond, I love you just because you're my baby. You ain't got to do nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. But my mother's, you can be whatever you want. So I had that combination. It was beautiful. They supported everything I did. And I was very fortunate, Michael. To this day, people, even my bride, will say to me, you always talk about your childhood, what a great childhood was. You got to be something. I said, no, I can't. I had a wonderful family. Was there turmoil in the house? Of course. Mm-hmm. Tell me what family didn't. Everybody in my neighborhood, the door's always open. Somebody's catching ass whooping. You always hear it. You know that. But I come from love, support. My parents support everything I want to do. They love me. I never felt like, I'd have a relationship with my mother or my father that I wanted. I had a great childhood. What do you want me to tell you? You want me to make stuff up? I can't. I had a wonderful childhood.
That's great, and something you just said, kind of stimulated something in me. My dad was definitely my inspiration because I wanted to be like him. I admired him so much as a man. But my mother was the one who made me tough. I mean, she was one of those old Italians, don't spare the rod, you know what I mean? She made me tough, not my dad. It was my mother that made me tough. And then at some point in time, I saw in that life, I could never be my father in that life. He was his own way, he was his own guy. So I said at some point, I got to make my own way in this. So we kind of did it the same way. And for me, it was all about making money, rising to the top, you know, being the best possible mob guy could be that way. Well, my dad kind of took a different path, but you know, similar to you, at some point in time, no matter how much our fathers motivate us, we got to say, hey, we're not them, we're our own guys, and we got to proceed that way.
Well, you just said, Michael, you know, I mean, look, my father used to talk about my father, what a wonderful guy he was. I've read enough, but, you know, got to meet your father. But you read, your father was a different type of guy. Mm-hmm. Your father was one of the toughest guys out there. Everyone knew, you use your brains, man. You use what you had. You don't use your brawn. You use your brains to make money, because that's what it's about for that family. So, yeah, of course. And that's the same to me. I didn't come from depression. I didn't come from a certain need. My need, now, I tell people now, when I travel, I'm sure like you said, when you travel, when I travel the country, I've spoken for, you know, I speak in front of corporations, colleges, but a lot of times I've gone, you know, prisons, and I've gone in front of, you know, and you meet these guys, all the, you know, toughest guys, brothers from the hood, you know, and look at you like, you know, I tell them right from the jump. I tell them, look, I come from parochial school. I went to parochial school 12 years. I come from a loving family. My parents would stay together. All of that. I said, and you want to know how I could talk to you about the life you led. I can't. I said, I'm not here to do that. But let me tell you something. I said, but when I went to New York, or any of them, when I was in amateurs, but I wanted to move to New York, and I went in the gyms, and I went to every toughest gym. I used to go to the gym. I went down to the Solar gym, which was all Latinos, black and Latinos. They used to foam at the mouth when I walk in. Mm-hmm. They see white meat. I said, when I used to go down to the Gramercy gym, when I go to the Gleason gym, every gym I walked into, let me tell you something, your hunger ain't no bigger than mine. Mm-hmm. Different, but no bigger. I wanted to be my father. I wanted to make my father proud. I wanted to win that title from my father. So I didn't have to come from the hood to the barrio. Your desire and your hunger was no bigger than mine. In fact, mine was maybe more. So that's what I'm here to talk to you about. And then they buy into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
They look at you like, white. I come from a middle-class family. I make no bones about it, you know. But my city of Youngstown was a tough town. I know a little bit about that. You know, we all kind of go one way or the other. I chose not to. But it was always open there. It was always there, you know, like yourself. So
let me ask you this, Ray. Being from Youngstown, which is, I can't say from experience that I knew a lot of the mob guys, the connected guys there, but obviously I know the reputation. Did you ever get approached by anybody to try to compromise your fights or do anything like that?
You know, it's funny, Michael. I get asked that a lot. Never.
Never one time.
They were all proud of me. They were all proud of me. I know them all. Our city of Youngstown, for those who don't, our city of Youngstown is one of few cities in the country. And I'm sure there's others, of course, but I don't know too many that are controlled by two major families, Cleveland and Pittsburgh. We're literally, and I knew both sides, and I know everybody, and I still do. I mean, what's left? There ain't a whole lot left.
Right.
At that time, no, they didn't ever want me. I used to go and drink with them after I'd come home, party, you know, go out to the clubs. They were always there, buy me drinks, sit around, chat. They were proud of me, but they never tried to put their hand in my pocket. Never wanted anything from me. We're proud of you. You're making us proud. Ba-beep, ba-bop, ba-boo. You know, that was always that. They come to my fights. So it was always good. It was no. I think they saw me. In fact, I think maybe I was hands off to everybody, you know.
Exactly. They were proud of you. You know, my experience is I was very close with Vito Antifermo. You remember Vito? Yeah, good friend.
Love Vito.
You know, my friend Andrew Russo used to call Vito a heart on two legs. He said he didn't have that much skill as a fighter, but he had all the heart in the world. You know, all the heart in the world.
But Michael, you know, I tell people, see, the problem with Vito uses it more heart, guts. Nobody's gonna have that.
Right.
But he couldn't punch.
That's right.
Now Vito could punch. He'd have been a champion
exactly
10 times over.
Exactly.
He was going to be in war every fight.
Right.
Every fight. But if he could punch and knock guys out, he'd have been the champ for as long as he wanted.
Exactly. You're exactly right.
He would have beat Hagler when he fought.
And you know, we were so proud. Yeah, I was at the Hagler fight with him. We were so proud of him. And people said to me, oh, you guys tried to fix fights. I said, listen, we were proud of the guys around us. We wanted them to succeed. We didn't want them to take a dive. You know, never anything like that.
No. I told, when people say, did you ever get paid to take dives? I said, you've been watching too many John Garfield films.
That's right.
It don't happen nowadays. Now,
right.
is the business, I don't want to say corrupt, that's the wrong word. Is it challenged? I said, they do it differently now. It ain't like they go to the fighter and say, we want you to take the fall. They get to the judges. Certain fights are compromised. The word you just said, compromise. Good word. They get to the judges, and they have to look with a slanted eye.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'll tell you a true story. If you don't judge the fight that way they ask you to, then you don't judge again.
Right.
It's a pretty good gig. For judging, you get paid, you get expense paid, you get make good. Just it's that ringside where you'd want to be at anyway, right?
Right.
I'm gonna tell you a story, man. True story. I fight Camacho, right? 1989. I'm out 4 years. I come back to fight Camacho. Good fight, not a great fight, but a good fight because all I did was run. But anyhow, I beat him. I beat him easy. And I'm not saying, fighters win, they know. When they lose, they know.
Right.
But I beat him, and he knew. Even he admitted after the fight he lost. Okay. Cut to, I get a call about a month later if I come to fly into Vegas. A friend of mine at that time was the president of the Sahara, John Bonney.
Mm-hmm.
So John says, Mike, can you fly in? I want to have lunch with you. Sure. So that's when you can fly from LA to Vegas for like $29.
Right.
You go back into same day.
Right.
So I go in, I meet with him, and he says, look, he says, I wanted to meet with you, said, because I want you to know, we all know you won the fight. I said, well, I appreciate it, John. Yeah, I felt I won the fight. He said, we all know you won the fight, but you couldn't get the decision.
Mm-hmm.
I said, excuse me? He said, look, the fight was in Reno.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, if that fight was here, we could have handled it. But you have to say you were a 3-1 dog. There was so much money bet on you. If you win that fight, it breaks that town.
Right.
He said, we want you to know, we know you won, but you couldn't get the decision. I said, well, John, I appreciate you letting me know that. Don't make me feel any better. Don't make it right. I said, well, let me ask you something. I said, John, what if I knocked him out? Then what?
Yeah.
So well, then we would have lived with it, wouldn't we? But that didn't happen. He said, and other than that, there was no way you were going to win that fight. But I want you to know, we know you won, but you weren't getting that decision. So I tell Michael, it's a true story. And I tell people, I said, that's life, that's the business.
That's right. That's the business part of it.
Show business for a reason. Business comes long before the show.
Exactly. No, you said it right. And sports too. It's all about entertainment. That's what it is. They're entertaining people. But it's something that I think, my listeners certainly like to hear from me and from anybody that I talk with. It's coming back from adversity, Ray, from a traumatic experience in our life. And obviously you had one that really weighed heavily on you. And maybe you could tell us about it. And then I want to ask you, how do you come back from something like that? We've all had situations in our life. People have had struggles, and you overcame a big one. So tell us about it.
Well, Michael, it was my second title defense, Las Vegas. It's the grand opening of the permanent outdoor facility at Caesar's Palace. Not the Palace at that time, was the Palace.
The Palace, right.
Before that, when they used to have these big fights with Leonard Hearns or Cooney Holmes, they resurrect a facility, and then the fight was over, they tear it down. So this was the first fight in the permanent outdoor facility. Mm-hmm. Going to see 12,000 people. They're going to have all the glitterati. Glitterati was going to be there. Mr. Sinatra, Robert Goulet, Lou Rawls, Bill Cosby, George Brett, Willie Stargell, all the faces from entertainment and sports.
By the way, I want to say this. Sinatra loved you. I had a conversation with him one time, and he really loved. He's very proud of you as an Italian. He loved you as a fighter, and I know he was there at that fight.
Yeah, he was there, and of course, the Korean community from Los Angeles went over.
Right.
12,000 seats. I think we sold 10,000 seats. Nobody knew my opponent, and it was funny because my manager David Wolf sent me the tape. He said, "This is good. This is the next guy I want you to fight. He's the number one contender. What do you think?" So he sent me the tape. At that time, it was the VHS tapes, right?
Right.
So I put it in, and I was always good with this. I was very good with being able to dissect guys early on, quick. I watched a round and a half. Turned out, called my manager, said, "Okay, make the fight. You got to do it." I said, "It's gonna be a headache. This guy's a headache, but we got to do it. So prepare." And it was a southpaw, and he had the same style: come forward, take punches. He didn't back up, and it was good. You could see. But I felt I was watching him. I didn't think he was a big puncher. I always felt that I was going to be stronger than anybody I fought. Mm-hmm. I wanted to make it a war. I always tell people, the guys I worry about, people think, guys that moved around and boxed, I never worried about them guys. I knew how to cut off the ring. I knew eventually I'd catch up to them. It's the guy who stands in front of you and goes toe to toe with you, because like a punch can get in. That one punch get in, right? And this is something I did every fight. When I was in my locker room, I'd be saying my prayers. My father was over with me. Now my father he's more nervous. Raymond, I gotta go. I said, no, can stay with me a little longer. And then when the TV say, okay, 5 minutes, they give you a countdown, half hour, 15, 10, 5 minutes. He give me a hug and a kiss. He'd leave. Father O'Neill, who's my high school teacher, very close friend of mine, my personal rabbi, so to speak. Father O'Neill would say a blessing over me. And I always felt to give me some sort of comfort.
Just like the movie Rocky, right? Hey, Father,
Exactly. Yes. That's God's truth. Father O'Neill would give me a blessing, and my father would walk my father out to the seats, and then we get ready to go. But, just knew it was going to be it was going to be a war. I'd go to the gym or the locker room of some place. I'd look in the mirror, and people say, the writers say, a couple of guys would say, "What are you looking at?" I go, "I'm looking at myself." I said, "Because I know I'm not gonna look like this coming back." It's a true story. I always did, because I knew. So you go out to the ring and you got to fight, and I prepared. But the one thing I prepared, I knew what I was up against. Look, I didn't have the most natural talent. I had athletic ability. I was a good puncher. I come forward a bit, but I was always in shape. Could never outwork me. I know I was never afraid the guy was outworked, but I was not in good shape. I was in great shape. And I felt my style of fighting, I had to be on top of these guys to wear them down. Not only physically, but mentally, emotionally. Keep banging that body and all that. So that's the kind of the way I looked at it. But I always say, people say, between rounds, what were you thinking? I said, I wasn't. Like, what do you mean? I said, my trainer, Griff, would give me my instructions. When at the 10 seconds, he'd leave. I'd pray that last 10 seconds. Lord, just get me through this next round. That's true. And then bell ring. That's it. And so during that fight, so you go and you're ready. You know what you're up against. Guy come in. The first bell rings. First shot, he was a straight left jab, right on the chin. It's on, And so you just prepare, and he's standing in front of me, coming at me, and I'm throwing punches. And that was a war from the jump. Right from the jump was a war. And Michael, I always tell people, it was the one fight that I never thought of quitting in any fight. But that was the only fight I ever thought of quitting in the middle of the fight, because my body was hurting so bad. For whatever reason, my head was pounding, banging, and my body was hurting, and I couldn't discourage this guy.
So he hit you with that many shots, Ray, huh?
Yeah.
He kept landing them.
Kept banging heads, were tight. So, but it's funny how the mind plays tricks on you. Sometimes the mind wants to shut down, but the mind will shut down long before the body has to. You know what I mean? But you have to talk to yourself. No, one more round. And that's how I kept going through, getting up and going through it. I said my body is fortunate, and I always tell you, people of Youngstown, a large part of my success. I mean that sincerely, because they carried me a lot farther than my body wanted to at times. And that was one of the fights. People cheering for you here, and it just gets you up for the next round. And eventually, I felt I started to take over, but you don't know. You start thinking you're doing good. The 13th round, I went out, and I threw 40 unanswered punches, and I hit them, a lot of them. I missed a lot of them. My body was just aching. But the 13th round, I come out, I jump on him, and I throw 30, 40 unanswered punches, and I'm catching him, missing, but he's riding with me. People said they should have stopped the fight. I said, no, you can't stop fight when a guy rides with the punches, moving back forward. I missed him. I hit him a lot, yeah. But then about halfway through the fight, the round, about the first minute and a half, I'm throwing. I'm exhausted now. He pushes me back. He comes back and he starts catching me, banging me, and I'm just playing defense. I think, well, what is it with this guy? When you fight somebody from another country, they carry the dreams and hopes and visions of their country with them. You're fighting the country. You're not fighting this guy. You're fighting more than this guy. Because a lot of these guys ain't got the most talent, but you can't make them quit. You can't discourage them. They're carrying the dreams and hopes of their country on their backs. And that's what this guy was. But that round ended, and in the beginning of the fourth round, I ran out, boom. And I just threw a couple punches, and boom, I caught him with a straight right hand. He went down. He gets up, he staggers. Richard Green stops the fight. We're celebrating. Total joy, happiness. I never saw that he got carried out. I never saw that. I didn't know that until later on. We didn't know that.
But he got up after the punch, right? He got up. He was on his feet, wasn't he?
He got up. He got up. He was holding on, and they stopped it, and they grabbed it, and they set him down. I went over to congratulate him. Great fight, blah, blah, blah. And then we went back and we're celebrating. He was sitting on a stool, and he slid off the stool and collapsed, and I never saw that. I never saw them carry him out on a stretcher. Didn't know anything about that. So we're in my room, and I go in my suite. I got my mother's holding the ice pack on one hand and on one eye. My sister's holding on the other hand and on the other. My mother's weeping over me. She's crying. I said, Mom, what are you crying about? We won. But, my eyes are swollen. She sees me. But, I understand that. And then shortly afterwards, my trainer first knocks on the door. He said, Ray, man, bad news. What's up, Griff? What? This boy don't look like he's going to make it. What are you talking about? Kim fell into a coma, man. Don't look like he's going to make it. I said, well, Griff, what are you talking about? He said, yeah, Dave's going to come here. Dave Wolf, my man. Dave's going to come up in a few minutes. He's going to talk to you. So Dave Wolf comes up. I'm supposed to go to the show. It's Mr. Sinatra's show. We have a party in my suite. The early evening when I'm at the party. After the party, we're going to go to the show. They come up, and Dave says, Ray, he fell into a collapse. He said, I've talked to the doctors. Doctor thought he's going to make it through.
Wow.
You go from the top of the world, to kissing pavement in a matter of minutes, hours. The emotions that run through from.
Let me ask you, so at that moment, the victory didn't mean anything to you, really?
Well, no, you just said it, you go from total exhilaration to total despair.
Right.
And I started grasping and put my head around it, and it was very difficult. And people come, we're having a party in my suite, but it's very try to keep a smiling face and have it enjoy knowing this guy's I said, I want to go see him. And Dave said, no. I said, I talked to the doctor. The doctor said it would not be a good idea. I know that you'd want to see him. And he says, doctor said it wouldn't be a good idea. He said, nothing you can do right now. That was Saturday. And then usually we'd leave on Sunday to go back, but I stayed overnight. And that Sunday, again, I went to the hospital. And I want to say, and they wouldn't let me in. They wouldn't let me see him. They just said, nothing you can do. I sat with the doctor. I forgot the doctor's name at the moment, but I sat with the doctor, and he just said, look, brain swelling in the brain. He didn't give me all the medical terms and stuff, tell me what's going on. It's just basically the swelling in the brain that it wasn't going to come out of the coma. And if he did, there'd be no quality of life. So you just, the thing that bothered me, Michael, was that, you say your prayers and, not you. I never said, God, why me? I said, God, why not me? Why should I be exempt?
Mm-hmm.
Right? But it was like, God, why? I was on top of the world, man. And that happened. And more than anything, I didn't want to see my mother and father go through there because they were besieged with calls too. And I seen the pain my mother was going through. And they were in pain for me. You see, but they're in pain. You see, and my mother would sit there, and my mother would say to me, she'd sit there and cry. I mean, even when we came home, she'd sit there and cry. She said, Raymond, I wish there was something I could say. I wish there was something I could do. I said, Ma, you can't. I got to get through this on my own, and I will. But you got to let me do it. And
You know what, Ray, I got to tell you something very, very interesting. I've become pretty friendly with Mike Tyson, and I know a lot about. Good guy, very sincere now. One of the most honest guys you ever want to meet. Just everything is out there. But it's funny, when in talking to Mike and talking to his trainer, a good friend of his that he knows since he's 15 years old, they used to train together. You may know his name is Tom Patty. I don't know if you know Tom.
Oh, yeah, I know Tom.
You know Tom. Great guy. But, Mike grew up obviously a lot differently than you did. You grew up in a loving family, mom and dad. Mike had none of that. He was a street kid. Until Cuss came around, he really didn't have anybody really cared for him. And what he would tell me, he said, Michael, when I got in that ring, I wanted to destroy my opponent. I wanted to the anger all came out of him. I'm not saying he wanted to kill anybody, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that. But you know what I mean, he had such anger in there. And I see the difference in two fighters where you wanted to win, your motivation was to be the best, but you had a different kind of heart and a feeling than Mike did. And it was basically because of your upbringing. because of the way you grew up, you know? Very interesting.
Talking about Tom. Didn't Tom meet Mike up there at Cusses?
Yeah, that's where they met.
Yes. Tom's a good guy. You know, Michael, it's funny, not so funny. I tell people at that time, what was difficult was the press was, you know, and I always tell people, the American press might be bad in certain ways, but the European press, man, they're a hell of a lot worse. Them European, so they'd be calling from all overseas, you know, and they make up stuff. They just put stuff up. They make up stuff, you know. So I didn't leave the house for about a week.
You went into a deep depression, I mean, over that. I mean, this really bothered you.
Yeah, because what was happening was people were going on, you know, on the news. I'd see on ABC, Good Morning America, priests from the Ecumenical Society of America saying, here's a young man saying he's a Catholic Christian boy. How can he be a Christian if he's going to try to hurt other people? How can he be a Christian trying to maim other people?
And this was clergy saying that?
Yeah.
You see, this is, you know what? This is the problem in our faith so often. You know, people make judgments like that are so wrong, Ray. So wrong to judge somebody.
Father Neil said, man, I'll tell you, man. Father Neil, he was there every time he'd ask. He said, Ray, you know, if Father Neil was, if he was a wise guy, he's one of them guys you want to be by your side all the time. He's just a wonderful man.
He's consigliere.
You know, and he's the best, man. Yeah. And I talk to him often now, you know, his health isn't the best, but he stood by me and I call him and I was going through his prayer and he called me and he said, Ray, he said, we can't ask God, we can't question God why. He said, you have to, you know, what you still learn. God has a plan for us, whatever it may be. We ain't going to understand it now. We ain't meant to understand it now, but someday it'll be revealed to us. He said, try to trust your faith. You got to trust your love in Christ and your faith in Christ that it'll be revealed to something, but there's a plan. Whatever that is, I can't answer that. He said, all I can be is for you, here for you. So finally, when I decided to go, I went out. Finally, one time, I went out with my friends. I said, I got to get out. I was losing my mind, you know. And so we went to a restaurant, and we stayed in the corner. And my friends told me to come. They kind of put me in a restaurant in the corner. And people would come up, hey, Ray, you know, hey, man, you know, and they were lovely people, friends of mine, fans. But, man, you get some of these people, they come up, hey, boom, let me ask you something. What's it like to see a guy fall? No, he ain't never going to get up again.
That's the question they ask you?
Yeah. I got, hey, what's it like to kill a guy? What's it like? I got to, you know. And I'm looking like, I couldn't believe this is what people were asking me and go, oh my, and I was just shaking my head. And my friends were like, be there. They were like, I always thought they weren't, I never had bodyguards. I had bodyguards. My buddies would they always watched out for me, come behind my back, get these guys out of there. But these are the questions. Michael, I was on the sideline when my nephew was playing pop water football. I was on the sideline watching him. Little boy, he had to be 10 years old. He tapped me and says, excuse me, Mr. Mancini. He said, do you know who I am? He said, I'm Dooku Kid's son.
Wow.
And I'm saying, this kid can't make up that stuff on his own. Right. I said, where's your father? Because I'm going to beat his ass. Like, you know, I mean, you know, it's these, and the people thought that was funny. I mean, I couldn't understand the things that people say and not think. Yeah. I'm sure people said things to you through the years that you just can't. Don't these people think before they talk?
You know what, Ray? I get that social media, you know, today it's become a platform for people that you just can't understand. You know what? Anywhere I go, Ray, no matter where I speak or whatever, and online, I hear it all the time. How many people have you murdered? How many people did you kill? They try to analyze your value as a guy from that life, from my former life, and how many people you killed. And I say, why are people so fascinated with murder? Murder is a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing. If you're a guy out there that enjoys committing murder, well, something's wrong with you. Oh. I don't care what form of life you're in. I don't care if you're in the military. I don't care where you are. There's something wrong with you at that point.
You were in a life with those guys, and you've seen that. And you know they don't last long because
they never last. Absolutely. Every guy I know that had that kind of mindset, they don't last. Not at all. It's unbelievable, and it's amazing that people would ask you that question knowing the pain that it had to cause you in the ring like that.
I couldn't understand why people would be so that insensitive to ask a question like that. And even to this day, sometimes, I used to get this. They go, and I appreciate you asking me, look. So they go, no, nothing's up. Not now, of course. People say, look, they've recorded, Ray, what's your next fight, this, that. Look, I got to ask. I go, no. You don't. Mm-hmm. You choose to. but you don't got to ask. Well, I said, you're a reporter. You're going to say, well, because I'm, no, you don't got to ask.
That's right.
You're also, but you choose to ask. I said, okay, so do your job. Well, and they asked, I go, I refuse to ask. And I go, I'm not answering that. I said, you choose to ask. I said, I make the choice not to answer. And that was at that time. I mean, but Michael, I just said, you don't have to ask. And that was the thing that always got me. People say, I have to ask. People say, I have to. No, you don't got to do anything. You choose to. So I understand the job of a press, I understand that. But like you guys got to come and think, I got to ask you, Michael. I got to ask you. You ain't got to ask nothing. You ain't got to. You can't choose to.
And people don't understand. I don't want to answer a question like that, whether I did it. I'm not something I'm proud of, I'm happy with, but I don't know what people think. But let me ask you this. Did you ever think of quitting the ring at that point in time?
Sure. My heart, I prayed about it. I said, Michael, because what bothered me more than anything is, look, let me go back. We all know the ramifications of the life we chose, right? Life you chose, life I chose. We all know what could happen. What could happen. But you never dwell on that. Every time I went in there, I used to say, I'm willing to die to hold on to this title. I'm willing to, and I meant it. Mm-hmm. After that, that's the thing that got to me. Why him and not me? Why that? Because we were both exchanging punches. I was catching as much as I was given for a period of time. And I'd say, my style of fighting is not going to change. So how do I know it's not going to be me next time? And that's the thing I had to think about. And I thought about, but I just won the title. It's a chance to get my financial security, to take care of my family, take care of myself. Finally, I sat Father O'Neill, and I told him what I was feeling. And Father said, Ray, well, if you're asking me if I want to see you fight again, he said, yeah, I want to see you fight again. He said, and I think God wants to see you fight again. He says, because you don't understand, you have such a gift. You're blessed with this talent. He said, and the good Lord put you in a position. You won the title. You know what you've done for this town? He said, you've carried this town now on your back. He said, and you give so much joy to the people of this town. He says, I think if you give up the title and choose not to fight, you're denying God's gift to you. I think you're denying God's gift. He says, so if you're asking me, I want to see you fight again. And he wouldn't want you to waste this gift. And that caught me. He said, Ray, things happen. God's using you now for a purpose. We don't understand it. You don't understand. I don't understand it yet. But God's using you for a purpose. There's a reason he allowed that to happen. He said, but I don't think he wants you to quit. And I think you use your gift for the betterment. You could use your gift. And so that's when I decided to come back. That's really why I decided to fight again. Now, people always say I wasn't the same fighter. I disagree. I still knock guys out. Here's the difference, Michael. Before, when I first fought, I fought for the love of it. I love being a fighter. I love everything was righteous about it. After that, there was nothing righteous about it for me. I lost the love for it. I had no love for it. It became a business for me now. And once I knew I had my financial security, that's when I walked. And I was 24 years old when I retired. 24, people, 24, but I had no love for it by then.
Wow, Ray, you know what? It's amazing how God really motivated you because you believed he had a different plan and a purpose for your life. It's something, people ask me all the time, Michael, if you had to do it over again, would you be involved in the mob life? And I said, yes, because I did it to help my dad. I said, God didn't cause me to sin the way I did during that time in that life, but he used my experience for what his plan and purpose was for me later on. And the same with you. The way you're talking now, I see that God used your whole experience as a fighter and all the stuff that you went through to fulfill his plan and purpose in your life. And it's amazing how God works. And to hear you say that God was your motivation to come back and to have that priest, encourage you in that way, even though there was a tragedy in the ring, is amazing. And I believe that, Ray. I really believe it.
I continued to fight a couple more years, and I tell people I still knock guys out. I didn't stop. But one of my best friends, like my brother, when my brother passed, he became my brother. He was in my corner, Chuck Fagan. Chuck he said there was a difference. He said, the difference was this. When I trained before that fight, Griff would tell me whatever he wanted me to do. He said, Raymond, you would do it. He would tell Chuck said, he said, after that, Griff would tell me to do something. How many times do I got to do that? How long do I got to do that for? He said, hey, that's the difference. He said, he noticed that in me. I didn't realize that. He said, Raymond, there was a difference. People said, he said, yeah, you still beat guys, knock guys out. He says, but the exuberance that you had before, you did it as opposed to after. I said, well, I didn't realize that. So people in your corner could see that. Look, I'm sure people in your own life. Here's the thing, though, Michael, that got me more than anything. And it bothered me more than anything. What happened to me, what happened to you, that was our choice, my choice, whatever. Be a fighter, it happened. But man, my father used to say this to me all the time, and I didn't understand it until later. He said, Raymond, you don't ever want your children to be responsible for the sins of their father. Mm-hmm. My father was a stand-up guy, and that's what I'm proud of. He never did anything to embarrass me, embarrass this name. And I tell my kids, I used to tell my kids when we walk out, I said, let me tell you something. When you leave this house, you carry the Mancini name. You don't represent yourself. You represent this family. Don't do anything to screw that up. Mm. So my kids, understood that. But after this, my kids were at school. Yeah. And people made comments, and my kids, my daughter come home one day crying her eyes out. So, Bobby, this boy called you a murderer. He said, you're a murderer. Where did the kid hear that? From the parents' office.
Exactly.
So my Bobby's not a murderer, and I used to break my heart. And I'm sure for yourself, you have children, and I'm sure things that the kids had to say at school to them. That's what kills you, man. And you just want to oh God, please stop. Don't let them have to hear. Don't let them they have to go through this pain. They don't need my kids. That was the hard part for me. And it's funny, all my kids had to hear it, and, but until I explained to them. So finally, my wife at the time, my ex-wife said, Raymond, she said before we had kids, are you ever going to tell the kids? I said, eventually, when they're old enough to understand. But that happens a lot sooner than you expect, right?
Absolutely.
Things happen in your life. Kids happen at school. So I sat my daughter down and I let her watch the fight. I let her watch it. And after she said, Papi, you didn't mean to do that. That just happened. You were fighting to win, but you didn't. Yeah, exactly. You understand. So I think that's the part the hardest part for me of everything was that. And then I think when we did the documentary, one reason I did the documentary, Michael, was that when I approached about it was to meet the son. His girlfriend at the time, they hadn't gotten married yet. They were planning on getting married. She was pregnant with his child. And I think that's what bothered me most. I used to think about him all the time, the young man, was just wondering. And then the opportunity to finally meet him, I said, how could I not? For him, for me. So what I tell people, if I get asked things now, which I do still occasionally, I'll tell the reporter, look, I'll answer anything you want. Did you read the book? Well, I haven't got a chance to read the book. Did you watch the documentary? Well, I said, read the book, watch the documentary. That answers every question.
Right.
If you have any questions after that, I'll be happy to answer. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I did the documentary. So I wouldn't have to answer any more of the questions, Right.
No, I understand. Ray, let me ask you this, because there's so many people that watch, my YouTube channel, and they like to hear, they're struggling, they have challenges, especially through this pandemic. People, I don't have to tell you what's going on. What do you say to people that, have experienced some kind of traumatic, ordeal in their life like you did? How do you come back? What would you say to them? How would you encourage them? What advice would you give them?
Michael, since then, there's been several fighters that have gone through what I've gone through.
Yes.
And I always get a call. Would you be willing to talk to so-and-so? Absolutely. I call them, and I tell them this is what I tell them. I say, look, you have to understand, the good Lord gave you a certain talent, directed you in this occupation because you have a certain talent for this. I said, you got to also trust that God has a plan for you. And I tell them, look, it's all about intent. And this is what Father Neil taught me. Father Neil taught me that it's like the guy who's driving in a car down the street. The little kid runs in front of him. You hit the kid dies. Did you mean to? No, of course not. That was not your intent. You're driving. It happened. It was an accident. It happened. But that doesn't mean you don't feel remorse and guilt and all that. Of course. Same thing. I've learned that was not my intent. My intent was to win. to win any way I could. It was a residual effect of how I won. So I tell people, I said, look, when you go on these fighters, I always tell the fighter, when you went in there, your job is to win in there to win. You want to hold on to the title. That's, God gave you a certain amount of talent to win this title. Give you the good Lord, give you the opportunity to win this title. But God allows things to happen that we don't understand. You have to understand. The point is that you have to trust your faith. You have to have a faith, trust in your faith that God will reveal the plan at some point, but not now. Nobody understands why. Trust in your faith and understand that that wasn't your intent. Your intent was to win. It happened. It's unfortunate, but you trust in your faith and trust in your family and friends to support you, but trust in yourself that you know who you are and what you are. And that's the only thing that carried me through. My faith is what carried me through, Michael. You got to have faith. If I didn't have the faith I have, I'd have taken the bridge. In the mud, whatever. But that wasn't.
Well, you know what, Ray, that's so telling to say that, because I give people the same message. I said, listen, if you don't have faith in God and faith in and accountable to God and realize that there's a plan and a purpose, and what happened to you was not God's plan for your life. He didn't want that to happen. We live in the real world. We live in a world, a fallen world, and we got to be able to come back from that. And, I've come back myself from many things that happened in my life, and God's been very, very good in that regard. I had a family like you did around me that supported me, so we have advantages in that regard, but you just can't give up. You got to keep moving forward.
The more I got to know you, the more I realized how much we do have in common. I mean, this is your second time around. I said, with my marriage, I said, I loved it so much the first time. I did it again. But I don't have no kids with my second wife. She had 3 of her own. But you reconnect. My second wife, but my second wife, we saved each other.
Right.
I was going through a divorce, and me and my ex-wife are very close. I love her to death. I'm always going to love her, of course. We're still very close, but it was a painful time. And I had kind of lost myself, and and then I reconnected with a girl I had dated when she was 15. I met her when she was 15, took her out when she was 18, right before I went to, and threw her a couple of times and said, hey, man, I can't, I know your family, I know you.
Right.
Better let's live it that way, right? We reconnected, and she saved me. And she said I saved her because she was going through a difficult time. What I'm saying is, it taught me that I could love again, and that I was in a bad place. It was a dark place, but she taught me. She helped me let me know everything was going to be okay. That I could get through it. And she was great. But it's and a lot of things. This before now. This, like I said, you go through different things in your life, and the fight with Kim, and then I get married, I have a family, and then you have 3 beautiful kids, and you have the Pollyanna life, wife, the kids, and then things happen, and you start to disconnect, and for whatever reason, and now you're in a part where something you never thought would happen to you. I never thought I'd go through divorce, one time, and I'll never forget when we were going through a divorce. My ex-wife said to me, Raymond. Why, again, she said, why? Why is this happening to us? Why us? I said, why not us? Why not us? Why are we exempt? It's the same thing I thought when I went through that fight. Why are we exempt? It happens to a lot of people. We caused that shit, all stuff. But we are the ones who can get it back together or not.
You're right, Ray. It's something I tell my kids when they complain about something and, Daddy, why did this happen? And I say, you know what? There's kids that are struggling all over the world in a much worse situation than you are. And you know what these kids did to deserve this? They were born. They didn't cause nothing. They just happened to be born in a wrong situation that they're going to struggle the rest of their life. So don't complain. You got it pretty good at this point in time. But, we do have that in common, because if I don't meet my wife, my second wife, we've been married 36 years, I'm dead or in prison for the rest of my life. No doubt about it. Now, I don't know what advantage I was to her, but I know she was a major advantage to me in my life. But,
Yeah. And as I said, me and my first wife, we love each other. We're very close still. Because we realized you're partners in your kids' life. That don't change. You're still partners in your kids' life, not partner in each other's life.
That's right.
And she recently got engaged, everything. And she texted me the first person she texted me. I said, I love you. I want you to be happy. You deserve it. I'm so happy for you.
No, well, that's a good way to look at it.
I said, I couldn't say that before. You know what, Michael? I tell people, when I found out, I realized what love is. I thought I knew what love was. I didn't know anything about love until I went through my divorce. And I said, because after you go through divorce and all the pain, you realize, you know what? I love you enough that I want you to be happy. If it ain't with me, with somebody else. See, my attitude before that was, look, I want you to be happy, but not at my expense.
Yeah.
That's not love.
I know.
But that's how I felt for a long time. And then, but ego, that's ego. And you realize, as we all know, ego gets you your ass whipped, figuratively and literally, right?
Right.
That's what happens. Ego gets your ass whipped, and in some cases, killed. You get ego. That's what I said. I wouldn't have been a good wise guy because my ego would have got involved.
Yeah, I get it. Well, for me, I didn't know what love was until I met my second wife. That was it for me, and then she showed me what true love was really about. But listen, I want to tell you, we have so much in common, Ray. It was such a great time talking to you. Let me ask you this, though. What do you got going on now? You know, I know you've been acting, you got production companies, you're doing...
I got a couple things in the hopper that they're so close. And I mean, not because... Now, look, I tell people, I'm in the entertainment business, I'm producing films, I'm involved with Netflix on a project. Youngstown, 40 Youngstown. I think I told you about that. In independent film business now, people thought the COVID hurt it, actually helped independent films.
Right.
Because, you know, the domestic theatricals like really off the table. Streaming is really what's happening. So the model has changed, and you got to stay on top of it. And we created a business model that's pretty unique. I work with a group, and that's what I'm working on, Michael, because I love creating content, and I love creating. You know.
Let me ask you this: you still want to act a little bit?
Oh yeah, people always say, "You think you can act?" I said, "I don't know if I can act. I know I can act like I can act. I act, Michael. I act in things I produce because I know what I do. I do very well, whatever that may be." Well, I know I do what I do well.
I got to tell you, Sid, they're developing a TV series based upon my life that I believe is going to go the distance. It's a big company, and I got a powerful team behind it, and I want you to play one of the wise guys.
I'd be honored, man.
All right.
Put me in touch with whoever I need to talk to about the casting, whatever.
100%. That's it. You got my word.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And you know why? I'll tell you why, because I want to work with you. That's why.
I want to work with you too. Well, like I said, I would like to have you come on as a consultant on something I'm doing that because you'd be the guy to consult with.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I'll tell you about it. We'll talk. I'll call you. We'll talk.
All right, brother. Listen, I really enjoyed this, and I hope we get together this year. We got to make it happen somehow, one way or the other. And you know, I got this pizza place now. Have you seen it? I got a franchise. It's called Slices. We got 7 stores now. We just opened 2 in LA, 1 in Newport Beach. So at some point in time, I'd love to get you involved in that. I mean it.
I'd love to. I'd be honored to. I would be honored to.
So I'll be in touch with you. I'll talk to you about it.
It's just back east here.
Yeah, you know, we'll do some things together. We'll put one in Youngstown.
I'd be honored, man. I would. But I'll talk to you because I tell you, what I got going now is pretty unique. No, we'll talk about it.
All right, brother, you got it. Stay in touch. Thank you so much. And I'll let you know when this is going up. Any links that you have or anything that you want me to post on this, you know, send them to me.
I appreciate it. I will do that.
All right? All right, brother. God bless. Huh? I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
All right, buddy. Bye-bye. You know, something that Ray said here just really touched me. He had a priest, Father O'Neill, that was kind of his consigliere in his life, you know, just boosted him up. Remember in the movie Rocky, when Rocky looks at he's about to go and get into the ring, and he sees the priest, and he says, hey, give a blessing on me so that if something happens here tonight, you know, everybody's going to be okay, my family will be okay. Well, Ray says that every time he went into the ring, he got a blessing first from Father O'Neill. And when this tragedy happened in his life, when he knocked out this fighter and this fighter went into a coma and actually died as a result, Ray went into a deep depression, very, very deep depression. But he realized that this pastor, this priest, said to him, you know, this is not what God wanted in your life. You didn't go in there intending to hurt this person. You didn't want that. God had a plan and a purpose for your life, and his plan and purpose in your life was to be a fighter. So you get back in the ring. He encouraged him to get back in the ring. He didn't let this tragedy derail Ray. And he probably could have told him things that would have derailed him. And you know, it reminds me, so many Christians sometimes are so judgmental. And Ray will tell you, he went through phases there where people were calling him a murderer. His kids struggled in school, you know, when kids would say to his children, you know, your father was a murderer. Where did they hear that? They heard that from their parents. Horrible stuff. Ray didn't intend to do this, but this was the business that he was in. Sometimes the business that you're in causes you to do this. You know, I'm sure many soldiers that are trained to fight and defend their country, you know, they don't go there wanting to kill people, but this is the calling that they have at their moment. They're defending their country, defending their family, defending the people of the country that they come from. Unfortunately, at times, tragedy happens as a result of the things that we're doing, but they're unintended. You know, I've heard it in my life. You know, people can be so mean and judge you for the things that you did, but you know what? They don't know your heart. They didn't know Ray's heart. Ray was destroyed over what happened in that ring. You know, he was a fighter. He wanted to win the fight. He didn't want to hurt the guy. You know, and something very interesting, I mentioned it in there. I know Mike Tyson very well. And he grew up in a very rough surrounding, very, very rough time. He grew up with a lot of anger. And he said to me, Michael, every time I went into the ring, I wanted to destroy somebody. I didn't say he wanted to kill anybody. That wasn't his intent, but he wanted to destroy somebody. Ray, who grew up with a loving family, mother and a father that loved him, he went into the ring just wanting to win. It was different for him. And it shows that how our backgrounds really shape who we are, you know, how we grew up. And it's often, to me, a lot of times I went to a prison and I seen kids that come out of rough situations. And I said, man, what chance did these kids have? They had to end up in jail. They didn't even have a chance. So the environment that we grow up in has so much to do with how we end up. And it's so important to get around the right people in life. And I say this all the time, and to be accountable to the right people that want to put you in the right direction. So important. And you know, Ray was so broken up over what happened. But again, it was his faith in God that got him back in the ring. And it was different from him the second time around. It took a lot out of him. He wasn't the same fighter in many, many ways. You know, he used to fight for the love of the game. But after this tragedy happened in his life, he fought for the business of the game. It was different for him. But it was his faith in God that allowed him to come back. It was my faith in God that got me through the times that I was in prison. When they said, you'll never see the street again, Franzese, you're never coming out again, when the feds were upset with me, it was my faith in God, you know, that motivated me to keep moving forward, to keep trying, to keep doing whatever I got to do to get out and to be back with my family. God is the answer, people. You know, this is not a joke. You're hearing it from two guys who went through some pretty rough situations and were able to come out of it because of our faith in God. Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. Remember that verse. Another verse, Proverbs chapter 16, verse 3. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and your plans will succeed. They may not succeed the way you want them to, but they're going to succeed the way God has his planned for in your life. You know, I tell people all the time, I'm a person of faith, and people say to me, Michael, you're religious. I'm not religious. I'm not a religious guy at all. I don't even like the word. It has the wrong connotation to me, but I am a person of faith. I do believe in God. Doesn't make me perfect, but it's my faith that had me come back from some traumatic and difficult experiences in my life. And when you listen to Ray, with all he's been through, it was his faith that got him through it. And it reminds me a lot of of a verse that's very, very dear to me, the most important verse in my life. It's Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all of your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. And that's what happened to Ray in a big way. After he had this traumatic experience in life, he will tell you it was his faith that brought him back. Well, I was very inspired by hearing my friend Ray's story. I hope many of you were. And, you know, it's like I said, people, we try to entertain you on this channel. We try to give you information that's helpful. But really, you know, it's not all about storytelling. It's about you getting something out of it, you being motivated, being encouraged, because we do really want to help people through this channel. It's what I'm all about. You know, I speak all over the world. We do whatever we do, not because I'm the greatest guy in the world, but because of I believe in that for those of us who have been given much in our life, we have a responsibility to give back. And that's what we try to do even through this YouTube channel. So we're just about getting up to 500,000 subscribers. Remember what I tell you, huge giveaway. I'm going to give you a little bit of a hint. Slices Pizza is involved in that. Now, I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is. We got to get to 500,000 subscribed. Thank all of you who have been so loyal and have been enjoying the content. We know you have a lot of choices on YouTube. We really appreciate you tuning into ours. MichaelFranzese.com, our coaching is going crazy. Over 13,000 people that are getting information all the time. My inner circle, we have Zoom calls that we're doing. We're answering a lot of questions. We think we're encouraging and helping people. So thank you for coming into the inner circle. And now our Consigliere Network, where you're getting a lot more one-on-one with me and my team. So that's it for today. And how do I always leave you? Always the same way. Be safe, be healthy. God bless you all, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. God bless you, and I will see you next time.